Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. I know that's your baby.
I want to thank you, for coming out to the, November the 13th Commissioners meeting. As you all know, we call it the Commissioners meeting, but this is your meeting, and we thank you for showing up and expressing your interest. I'm going to start off with the invocation by Commissioner Jarvis, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Jarvis?
Will bow with me. Our dear blessed Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for all that you have done for us. We pray that you would be with us this evening, help us to make the decisions that would be best for the county, help us to look at each situation and do what you would have us to. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do, so, I reckon, is Angie Rubnik here from the Thomasville Chamber? Okay, I thought she was gonna be the voice for those folks tonight. I want to recognize her. There's some folks that sit around us, a lot of you don't know who they are, and a lot of you do know. I'd like to introduce you to our County Attorney, Chuck Fry, our County Manager, Zeb Hanner, our Assistant County Manager, Casey Smith, to my left, and our Master Clerk, Debbie Harris. Very appreciative of the job they do. It'd be hard for us to do what we do without them and without our fine staff. Please register if you want to speak at public address if you haven't already done so. Okay. Due to the expected length of the public hearings, I'm requesting that they be moved to follow the consent agenda. Are there any other changes for the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's been some changes on the approval of the lease and sublease for the ABC store. At this time, I'd ask that you pull that until, some matters can be tidied up.
Okay, under item 10A, the approval of the lease and sublease for the ABC store location with ABC board, Zeb has requested that be pulled. Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, can I have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda?
Motion approved, amended.
Got a motion by Commissioner Troy, second by Commissioner Yates. Please cast your vote.
All of the votes are in.
Okay. Is anyone ready?
Carried 7-0.
Okay. The public address portion, Barney W. Hill.
I have listened to both of Kathy Jordan's public addresses and have come to the conclusion that she is being too gentle to you. When Mr. Cornman wants to establish that a street is a collector street, he ought not have to talk about what some MPO has to say about the matter. You know that we would have been spared the Susan Rogers and the Dan Batchelor situations if the definitions in your zoning ordinance had been adequate. I propose a complete overhaul of Article Roman numeral 10 of the ordinance. But this time, don't hire an expert consultant. Hannah Cockburn is why you're in the mess you're in. Hire instead 7 non-expert consultants, the ones who already have been hired by the voters. It was the 7 of you who volunteered for the task of making sense out of the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Are there any items to remove from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner McClure. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second, Commissioner Troy. Cast your vote.
All those votes are in. And that item also carries 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question real quick? Madam Clerk, I see item number in the consent agenda, it's, the one, N, award the badge and service weapon to the retiring sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Could he not make it tonight?
I spoke to the sheriff personally, and I reached out to him, and he said that he had other commitments this evening.
I hate that. I would like,
He did appreciate the request, though.
okay, thank you, ma'am. I'll call him and thank him for his service.
Okay. Updated emergency management ordinance, Chuck and Alton.
Evening, Chairman, fellow commissioners. We had talked maybe a month or so ago about updating the current emergency management ordinance that we have. We wanted to clean some things up. We got rid of some old, general statutes or ordinance numbers in there, and then we clarified some things with the sunset policy where the state of emergency would not expire at the end of 3 days. I think you've got a packet, maybe it was updated this afternoon, that we needed to clarify that even more. It had gotten maybe some miswording in it, but it should have been, it doesn't expire until, you wanna address that wording on that particular, how we got it worded, Chuck?
Mr. Chairman, I think the proposed emergency management ordinance that is in the packet for tonight is consistent with the direction that the board gave to Alton and to me when we were last here, with one difference. And that is that under section 31.11, termination of declaration, you may recall that under our existing ordinance, we are unique. We are the only county that I know of in the state that has a sunset provision, and it automatically expires in 3 days and then has to be renewed. And there have been several times when we've gone back 3 or 4 times to renew that. What we understood the direction of the board to be when we were last here was that you wanted to be in conformity with the general statute and with the other counties in the state, and that the ordinance or the declaration would continue until such time as it was revoked. And the language that's before you tonight doesn't provide for that. The language that's in front of you tonight has it expire after 7 days rather than 3 days. So what we would propose to substitute in its place is that any declaration issued under this chapter shall expire when it is terminated in writing by the chairman or his successor pursuant to chapter 31.12. And so that would follow through with the direction we got. It just simply didn't get in the documents in front of you tonight. We will make that change and put it in the document that will be presented if the board goes ahead and calls for a public hearing to be scheduled on Tuesday, November 27th.
Okay.
So apologize for the oversight there.
You say you need to bring it back on the 27th, or can we approve it with your suggested change?
What we are asking for tonight, Mr. Chairman, is a motion to schedule a public hearing for the changes in the ordinance.
Public hearing, okay,
Yes,
got
sir,
you,
on
on the
the
ordinance, I'm
27th.
sorry, you're right, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we schedule it for a public hearing.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner
Second.
McClure.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crotch. Cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries 7-0.
Okay.
I like that new system.
Okay, presentation on new recruiting onboarding software. Kathy?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Kathy Cashin, HR Director for Davidson County. I wanted to talk with you tonight about our current applicant tracking system that we use to recruit and to hire people for the county. The current system that we have was created in-house sometime around 2010. We've not had any upgrades in the past 2 years. So in talking with the IT staff and in talking with other people in the county who have to experience the use of this system, we've looked at a lot of different systems. I haven't looked at them in depth. I've compared them online, looked at the pricing, looked at what they offer, and with the experience that I've had working with a few systems in the past, we came to the conclusion that Civic HR Plus might have the best deal to offer us since they're already supporting our what do you call it?
Hosting our website.
Yes, there you go, thank you. So we did call them in, we looked at the product that they have to offer, we got pricing on it, we involved IT with it, the whole HR department, and after looking at this system, looking at the possibility of rejuvenating what we have now, we came to the conclusion that probably the best thing to do that would give us the biggest bang for our buck and be the most affordable project would be to go with what Civic HR Plus could offer us. I included that in your packet as to what the price would be. Right now, we're currently looking at a total of $18,250. That includes the implementation phase for both of these systems. Both of the systems are completely cloud-based software modules. They're easy to use local government HR solutions. It's maintained by Human Resources. We would have 24/7, 365 Civic Plus technology support. And then the annual cost for cloud and system maintenance support and updates as we move forward would be $9,750 per year for year 2 and forward. These two modules, like I said, we have reviewed them. We really feel like they have the best functionality and efficiency to offer. We have an ability to grow to meet our current needs, to grow into future needs. The integrations are free with social media and third-party career portals. The support and training will be ongoing, so each year as we add new people to the system, we will have their training to get them up to speed on using the system. It's very user-friendly, both for the applicants and the hiring managers. One thing that I have noticed is that the complaints that come into HR practically on a daily basis, certainly multiple calls on a weekly basis, is that the applicants feel like the system that we currently have is just not user-friendly. Most people want to use their cell phone to apply for positions. This system that we have in-house is not user-friendly for using with a cell phone. It's just not possible. We have lots of applicants that get to the point where they cannot get their application uploaded, they can't get their resume uploaded, and they just stop in their tracks. My fear is that we're losing a lot of good candidates who just say, I'm not doing this, and so they just walk away from it. Many times we're doing the work behind the scenes for them. They're sending us their information, we're uploading it ourselves, we're sending it to the department heads. We're doing a lot of the work, which is basically the same as them coming into the department, handing us a paper copy of their application and resume. So tonight we are respectfully requesting approval for both of these systems, onboarding and a new applicant tracking system. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, you mentioned social media integration. Is that to promote job openings?
It is. They will give us free integrations with Indeed and LinkedIn, and then Civic HR has a career portal. There are multiple other career portals that we would also have access to that would be free of charge.
Okay, so it's geared towards LinkedIn and those. It's not like a Facebook or.
No.
Okay.
No, Indeed and LinkedIn.
And Kathy, you say you've already discussed this with Joel, and it can be integrated into our website easily and not archaic, as you've been. Some folks have told you that our system is hard to maneuver through. Is is this something that will work with our system that we've got present?
Joel is,
I was looking to see if he was here.
In the back room, he's behind the glass. Don't pay no attention to the man behind the glass.
Here he comes.
I told him if I waved the white flag, he had to come out.
Has somebody got some ruby red slippers too?
Yes, it will absolutely integrate nicely in with our Civic Plus website, being that it's one and the same. And Kathy mentioned about it being, the need for being mobile. It is a truly, responsive, system that will work very friendly on any mobile device.
Well, quick question for the wizard and Kathy. Exactly what is this? I know it's for them to apply for a job, but is it something that we could create? I know we have one that's kind of archaic, but could we use kind of what we already have now in place, create something similar to where we don't have that ongoing cost of almost $10,000 a year?
What we struggle with is the lack of staff. We have one developer, and based on my estimates, it would take at least 2 more. We could do it with one, but it'd probably take us 2 years to do it.
Okay, that answers my question. It's cheaper to pay $18,000 and $10,000 a year
It certainly is.
than to have to hire 2 more staffers. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Is there anything, on these two systems that lack, so far as the other systems that you looked at are concerned?
No, there really isn't. One system that I've been used to using is called iSIMS, and it's a very high-powered system, a whole lot more money than what we're talking about here, but it's not services that we need. I really feel like this gives us everything that we need and probably a little bit more so that we can grow into it.
That's good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Have anything?
Where's the money coming from?
PVB for the first year. Second year, we'll have to roll it in our budget.
In HR's budget,
Most likely, yes. Should be a contract for them.
contracted services.
Okay.
Yeah, but that should make HR more efficient because you don't have to do as much work.
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, if there's no further discussion, can I have a motion second to approve?
Make a motion, we
Got a
approve.
motion from Commissioner Yates, do we have a second? Commissioner Jarvis, please cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. That motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, approval of the engineering services, the 85 Corporate Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. What I'm bringing before you today is a request on behalf of the Business Park Steering Committee. This is an engineering proposal to service inside the corporate park itself. This will serve the other lots within the park other than Edgar. We had 2 firms to participate in the qualification-based selection process. In our opinion, Davis Martin Powell is the most qualified. Also have Mr. Ben Palmer here to help answer any questions that you may have, and I'd like to entertain those now if you would.
Okay, do we have any questions by the board?
This is to serve other properties on the site?
Yes, sir.
What other properties do we have out there?
We got 4 parcels, right?
Yes, the rest of the lots.
The rest of the lot?
Yeah. Yes.
But there are some folks out there on them lots, right?
Not yet.
Yeah.
This is the pump station, the reason.
I'm saying I can read that.
Right, I was just gonna explain, the reason the park committee felt like we needed to move it forward was in order to be marketability for, the other lots to be sensitive to time. Craig said he needed at least the engineering part of it done, whether we do the actual construction now or not, but at least get the engineering on the other pump site.
And that was the question from start to finish. How much time are you talking about doing this?
for the design component of it?
Yes.
We're, right now, we're shooting to have the project designed and, in the permitting process by the end of January.
By the end of January. And then if you don't do any further than that, and then once you get to where you wanna complete it, how long does it take to complete it?
Right now, we're estimating about 7 to 8 months for construction.
7 to 8 months?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I need that.
I got a question.
Ain't got
for
any
you, Ben.
pictures on it.
I forgot to ask you this morning. Once we go through the engineering process and, you get your permitting, how long does those permits last in case we don't do construction? Cause this pump station's about $1.3 million or $1.4 million, the best I remember. So what if we put it off? What if we don't have anybody interested in the lots and we decide to wait to install the pump station?
The length of time that the permits are good for varies depending on the permitting agency, but they'll vary anywhere from a year to 3 years before they expire. But if they do expire, it's not an issue to have them renewed.
Okay.
It's just a process of request or renewal. And unless there's been major changes to the design requirements within that period of time, it's just an administrative.
So there's a good chance most of them last 3 years, and then you may have one that lasts a year.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
How much was the engineering part of it?
139.
130.
Okay. But, again, I don't know anything about this stuff except it doesn't flow uphill without a pump. Would it matter what type of business goes out there as to what size and how the pumps operate?
That does play a factor into
Mhm.
it. However, with the acreage that's available currently within these remaining, I guess there 4 out of the 6 lots are gonna be served by this new pump station. The other 2 lots we can service by the gravity extension that's proposed as part of this design. With the remaining acreage that is there now, we can estimate, and approximate some daily flow data and usage, based on the acreage and what we're anticipating of coming in, to size those pumps.
Right, but then if we get a business that, has 3,000 employees and a telemarketing center, then we've got a problem. Would that be correct?
Honestly, potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking at it thinking, if we get somebody coming out there, and again, I hadn't talked to Craig about it, but it's gonna take a year or 2 to build something, and then that gives us 12 months to do the engineering and build the pump station, but that's just my opinion. That way we know what we're looking at.
Commissioner Craig, what prompted some of this was a conversation I had with Craig, and there were a couple potential clients that they were talking a very quick turnaround in order to get out there. And Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, 5.5 months to get a building up and done?
There are a couple that they're close enough that they're talking about 6 months, and in all practicality, to do the design now and have it ready, and then do that, we would have time. The problem is the companies that are looking, they're never just looking at one site, they're usually looking at multiple sites, and if they have 2 sites over here that already have it in place, they know it's there, they don't have to worry about anything, it just eliminates those things.
Okay. I didn't see you sitting back there, I'm sorry, but thank you for answering that for me.
Craig, the square footage of those sites the acreage is like 60 acreage, and 2 of them 40 acres, and
One's 46,
One-
one's about 60.
Your other option, if you don't do construction, if you don't go ahead and build a pump station, you can always size different pumps in there if you bring a client there with more.
Right, that's
usage.
correct.
We'll just have to upsize the pumps.
And even, just to expand a little bit, Commissioner Crotts, on my response earlier, there is a potential there that you could see what we call a wet industry come in that uses a lot of water. But even then, we would have the core components in place, and we could come back and do a pump replacement or a pump upsize
Okay.
accommodate
And
that.
thank you for explaining that, 'cause again, I don't know anything about that stuff. I just know that I have to, oh yeah, that's about all I know. That and how to fix the valves in my own toilet at home, but, yeah, I just have that responsibility of making sure that we're doing the right thing by the citizens of our county. And, but as far as, I'm not on the sewer committee, I don't know about that stuff, but that's why I'm asking, so.
Okay, do we have any more questions for the gentleman?
If it's approved, the money coming from,
It's coming from the grants within the project.
from the grants that we had out there? And that will be expended now, or within how long?
Well, if we're not gonna do the full-on construction, I don't guess now until we gotta, I guess, are we gonna plan on doing that as well, right after the design, or are you just gonna wait for some type of tenant?
Well, I think it would be primarily dependent on the tenant.
Right.
But what I'd like to do is get the design done, get it to where it can be permitted.
Have it ready.
Get the bid documents ready so that we could start construction in March, April, and get it done if we needed to. And I think that would be, at least for the projects that I know of right now, that would be plenty of time.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, I would make a motion to approve the request.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Design work done for.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Jarvis, and a second by Commissioner Krotz. Cast your vote.
Appreciate your work.
Commissioner Fox, go ahead, your vote, I got your motion.
Thought I did.
Thank you, all of the votes are in. And that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay, conclusion of rezoning request for Buddy Lyons and Leo Terra Development, Inc. in Arcadia Township containing 213.15 acres of RA, from RA3 to MXR. Guy?
We were here October the 23rd, and the chair did close the public hearing, but before you voted on it, it was suggested that we bring back a revised master site plan, which the developer has done that. And we wanted to clearly state for the record the additional restrictions that the developer agreed to, and it's also highlighted on the site plan. And so at this time, I'll try to present those to you, and then if you have any questions, we have staff here as well as the developer's representative, Brad Coe. But if you recall, with the 15-foot strip of land being deeded to the adjoining property owners on the north for their use as an access easement, if you want to show that.
We're trying to get it up on the
Okay.
screen here.
Scott, if you'll show that with your pointer.
Foot easement that we're talking about is around the northern boundary. Property line.
If you'll recall, we had interest from the audience for that to be done. Also, the developer has agreed to have a landscape berm along Heggie Road, giving privacy to the back of the proposed houses, and that has been added to the proposed master plan. The prohibition of a walking trail next to the properties owned by Rush and Fotusky, those two particular property owners wanted to have that eliminated, so the developer has shown that. And then, if you recall, there were two additional portions of lots along Heggie Road that have been withdrawn from the MXR district. And those are to be, I guess, either.
This portion will eventually be deeded and this is moved. That'll be a private matter. Once this is taken out of the MXR request, that'll be a private matter between Mr. Lyons and Mrs. Moon.
Let me ask you a question on that, guy. If that's taken out and it's deeded over to a private individual, couldn't that person put a house on there? And if so, wouldn't there be additional driveways coming in there?
And they would have to get a driveway permit.
But I think one of the biggest concerns up there is the fact of congestion on such a small, site-limited road. And if you make those residential plots, you're gonna have that many houses with that many driveways emptying out on Heggie Road in addition to what's coming out of that development. Do you think that's what we need to do there?
What are we talking about, 2 more houses?
Now, it looks like, how many lots is
Roughly
that?
20,000 square foot lots.
Are those not individual lots?
They're a part of the farm right now. The proposed, amendment tonight is that these tracts here would be taken out of the rezoning portion of this. Mr. Lyons would still retain ownership of it, but it would remain in the RA3 zoning classification. If Mr. Lyons kept ownership of it, it would not be subject to the MXR district. And at that point, he could choose to do with it as he chooses, or if he were to deed it, as he plans to deed the northern portion of Miss Moon, if she gains ownership, she could certainly keep it as a separate lot and build a house on it and have a driveway there.
Would the lot be big enough to put a house on now?
Yeah, the 20,000 square feet, I believe it would be, because he was gonna put 2 lots here and 3 there. So I know this one's big enough. I think coupled with what she has, they could form a lot.
How many buildable lots do you see in that piece of property there that we're talking about?
It looks like 2 to me.
2.
So what are the other lots in between?
That's where people live already.
Oh, they're already there?
They're already there.
But if she kept it as a separate lot, I don't think it'd be quite big enough, would it?
I would have to run the numbers. You may be correct as far as how much square footage. If he sells that to her, if that's not 20,000 square feet, and she doesn't have enough in her own lot to add to that, then all it would be is just a buffer that she adds to her lot. So I'll need to run the numbers to see if it's a valid lot for a building lot on.
So 2 at most, maybe 1.
I would think so, yes.
Okay. So in essence, he agreed to everything they wanted.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. There's, just for the record, let me run through this list. There shall be no commercial use other than which is necessarily associated with residential development such as a model home that will be allowed. All common areas are to be owned and maintained by the homeowners association, including the existing ponds. As part of the 72 acres of open space that's being preserved. No walking trails are to be established in the common areas adjoining lands currently owned by Rush and Fotusky as shown. The developer is responsible for effecting the adoption of road maintenance by NCDOT. All roads are to be marked as public. That's putting the impetus on the developer to be responsible for the roads being built to state standards. That all homes will be served by Davidson Water and County Sewer, and that the covenants will include a provision that renting a house for a period greater than 1 year will be prohibited unless approved as a hardship by the homeowners association. There was some concern about these houses being rented for extended periods of time, but so he agreed to that statement.
These restrictions came from a meeting he had with some of the adjoining property owners, if you remember from a couple of weeks ago. And the reason we've asked him to put it on the master plan, because that's what you're adopting tonight if you approve it. Everything on the master plan, I know we can't read it here, but what Guy just read is listed here on the master plan. There were 2 that the board added. One was the landscape buffer that he has along Heggie Road, and he shows that on the master plan. And the second was making sure that the developer ensured that the roads were to be taken over by the state. It's going to be on him to get the roads taken over by the CDOT, and that's a statement there on the site plan.
I'm gonna go back to the question I asked you about those lots up there. Because you just told me that there was 2 houses already on those lots.
No, I'm sorry. They're empty. but,
Empty lots.
the lots in red,
Yeah.
those are existing home places there. The lots in black here are what was a part of the MXR that has been left out.
Okay, so we're looking at 24, we're looking at 3 lots that's included in the application.
Yeah.
Is that correct? 23B, 25, and 24.
441, 442, 443,
So I can pull up the original map if that would help.
44, and 445.
Can you blow it up some?
These two right here, 3 lots here. The original.
Did you get that thing? I only got this little big thing in.
Or what are being eliminated. The original request was for 445 homes, this brings it down to 440. And out of that, these two would be, I think they've reached an agreement to deed in this moon, and then these 3 would be retained by the owner. And then he has the option of going to either adjoining property owner to ask if they want to buffer their property or add to that.
Or you could keep it himself if he wanted to, that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the one that brought that up when we had the meeting, and I'd already talked to the developer. But if you've got the 3 houses there that are existing traditional homes, that, Allison was about 350, value, 400,000, something like that. But the driveways for those 5 properties that was being included in the MXR would have been on the Heggie Road side. But you would have passed that type of a home, you'd have had 2 of the smaller MXR properties on a small piece of land, then you'd have another large home, then you'd have 3 more, and then a smaller home, or a regular home. So what we were saying is take those out, so it doesn't look odd there, and allow them to, because then those 3 homes would not be part of that MXR development, and then the rest would, so it was to take that part out. Now, yes, you could have another traditional home in that one lot and one in the second, or the upper lot. But it would be a traditional home that would look like what's already there. And it wouldn't be 5 driveways, it would be possibly 2. So that's why we were looking at that. And the developer agreed to take that out, and it left the homeowners in that area happy. That way we could all compromise.
Well, what I was looking at though was, if they turn those lots over to a private individual, they don't have any more say-so over those lots. And that private individual can do what they want to with them. They don't have to go by whatever negotiated, or they're trying to reach a compromise,
Unless they
matters.
agree privately to restrictions. If Mr. Lyons agrees, and Ms. Moon agrees to a private restriction on what can be done with that property and the sale of it, the deeding of it, then that's private between them 2. But you're right, if it's just a be simple, then they certainly have the right to do it.
They're zoned RA3, right?
RA3 zone.
I guess the developer could put restrictions on it before he sells it or gives it to.
You could conceivably, under an RA3, actually put a manufactured home on one of those lots.
So he may want to protect himself somehow to do that. One of my main concerns is these roads. Me and you talked about this a little bit the other day, and I appreciate him sticking around till the development's finished to turn it over to the state. But what do we have in place, and maybe nobody does, his corporation by that time, if he sold all the lots, may not be solvent. He may have dispersed his corporation or whatever, dispensed it. What do we have to protect us or the homeowners from these roads being in a condition to turn over to the state? Is there any type of bond or anything that anybody's
That's
doing?
something you could, as a group, decide that's an option, but, how long does that,
I'm sure the developer, and there's his representative, but I'm sure the developer wants to be out of there in 3 years, but it may be 8, and the roads may be, we've got citizens in this county now that didn't know they had to, that they were taking over private roads when they bought their property, and they cost more to fix them than they have the money to spend on them. So that's a big issue. As far as I'm concerned, you're welcome to come up, as long as the chairman don't have a problem.
Good.
Mr. Yates, I would simply say that I would think it not inappropriate for the board to request the planning staff to come up with a policy that you adopt that would apply not only to this one, but to all of them. And I, as a surveyor who does many subdivisions in this county as well as other counties, I think that the developers need to be very expeditious and pursue adoption as soon as criteria are met. There are certain, number of houses per linear foot ratios, and I think as soon as that's met, the developers need to be very active to try to get adoption. As far as corporations dissolve, corporations disappear, I'll let legal counsel, make advice to the staff if you want to direct a policy on that. That's always a problem.
Well, like I say, we have no protection. There's no bond in place that, and whether it's you or me or whoever, I mean, the taxpayers need some sort of.
I would volunteer myself to work with the staff to try to come up with a policy that we could adopt as a county to start trying to be proactive in prevention of problems like this.
Because things are a little different now. You're not building a subdivision with 20 homes anymore. You're building a subdivision with 300, 400, 500.
As far as this one, I can say that I certainly see it being developed in phases, and I certainly see DOT requiring additional stone and asphalt on the roads that they'll consider. We've had a discussion that went on and on about collector and not, but even in this one, there are some that collect others, and I can see DOT requiring higher construction standards on certain ones of these roads. So
do they make you use a higher standard? I mean, I've seen.
Yes, say for example, the Rockland subdivision off of Fry Bridge Road, the main road, Dorchester, it has additional stone and additional asphalt.
But that's usually decided by the developer, not by the DOT.
That was decided by DOT,
really?
Sir. Yes, sir. They looked at the overall layout and decided that road would collect off the side streets, and we would have additional stone and asphalt.
Yeah, I think y'all talked about that on the main, the bigger part.
Yes, I'm certain that this main road
that one
will
right
be
there,
considered to collect, and I am absolutely
well, it should be,
certain it
but
will
the state used to, the minimum spec is all you had to build it by was the minimum.
They're requiring us now to do more than minimum for roads, so that when they see the overall lotting pattern, they'll increase the requirements. So,
because you don't have to turn it over to them, so they have no.
Well, on this one we do.
You have to, or you choose to?
That we chose to on this one, so we have to once.
But I'm saying they can't tell you how to build your roads because you don't have to turn them over to the state. You can privately maintain them if you want to.
Not to be argumentative, but if I come to them with a plan that says public on it, then they require me to go to DOT and get plans approved by DOT before I build it, and they won't allow me to bring my final plat to your planning board unless I did that.
Okay.
Our ordinance requires the roads to be built.
Our ordinance does, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't require the developer to stay with it until the end, and that's what.
What the missing piece is the petition to addition. Everything else is in place.
And see, here's the other thing. The developer, unless that plan is in place with the DOT, then the homes would not qualify for VA or USDA lending unless that part has been met. The only lending that you could do at that point is conventional, where they have to put a large down payment. So it benefits the builder to make that happen. Is that correct, Commissioner Barrett?
I was listening, Mr.
Sorry. What I was saying is that has to be approved, but to have it as a state road. If not, you can't get USDA or VA lending.
I think you just gotta have a certain size right of way for that.
Everybody's talking about turning the roads over to DOT. You look at some of the roads we have in the county that the DOT owns, I don't know whether that's a real plus or not. Because a lot of them, all they're doing is scattering rock on them and putting a little oil down. You know that. We had more complaints about that than we had pretty much about anything, but I don't know where the road is, whether it's a collector road or what road, but there are certain roads that they will not put asphalt on after. I know that the road that I live on has been there since 1940, and they haven't done anything with it except put more rock down on it every time. Of course, it's a cul-de-sac, and there ain't many people out there, but there are other ones. There's other developments in this county that are bigger developments that have the rock down there, because we've had complaints on those. It's terrible whenever they first put it down. But would they ever do that on this?
Commissioner McClure,
Because it's an enclosed,
typically DOT repairs in like manner to the type of material which has been put down. However, in certain budget crisis years, they have been known to put tar and gravel on top of roads that were paved with, what we call slick asphalt. They have been known to do that in budget crisis years, and it is up to them once they have maintenance. Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, but it is in our ordinance, and I think I remember this, that they have to be built to state specs, and is in our ordinance, they have to be turned over to the state? Okay.
It should be that either that or it has to be HOA, like if it's a gated community that the HOA maintains it. But I think we need to look at doing that, I agree. If that's, it either needs to be turned over or an HOA maintaining it. Because we've had multiple conversations about the one out in Silver Hill, and different developments that, now they're so poor you can't get them up to state standards.
See, the problem with the HOAs, though, in certain predicaments, they don't have any money to fix them either. So HOA, the Springs build all of those roads and turn them over to the HOAs, and luckily they have enough, but anyhow, getting back to this one, if y'all can work out something, because it does worry me some that we're gonna be stuck here with some roads not being turned over to DOT, with these bigger developments like this.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other, discussion, being as how the, all of the conditions have been met, and we've got a statement in here of purpose, then I would make a motion that we approve.
Commissioner McClure, would that be also to approve the resolution on statement of consistency?
Say it again?
Would that also be to approve the resolution on statement of consistency?
Yes, we'll include that. Y'all wanna include anything else?
And it would be a total of 208.07 acres is what you're rezoning to MXR.
I would be interested in hearing again, Commissioner Yates, was that, what we needed to go forward with as far as an ordinance, or were you recommending that be included in this?
I mean, it definitely worries me on this one, I mean.
It's in there, you can't read it, but one of the conditions does require the developer to be the person responsible for getting these roads turned over to the state. You directed the staff to do that.
So, Commissioner McClure's motion encased all this?
Everything on the site.
Okay.
Mr. Leonard, I'm not sure that, I was looking at my notes from the last time we had this discussion, and I think at that time that Mr. Yates was specifically asking that the developer, assumed liability for all roads until they were accepted by DOT.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that language may be stronger perhaps than what is currently reflected on the conditions.
Would, the developer have an issue with what the county attorney just stated? That y'all would be responsible for
No, sir, as a developer's representative, we understand the intent, and if the language is better worded as the county attorney suggests.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
We acquiesce and accept that language, so.
It would seem to me that if the developer had to, keep it in line with the state until it was turned over, that he would be responsible for the repair of anything that happened to those roads until it was turned over.
I concur, but if Mr. Fry feels that, liability is a better word, then we're agreeable to that.
Yeah.
I changed my motion to include that.
I'll second his motion.
Motion, Commissioner McClure, second, Commissioner Truill. Cast your vote.
Commissioner McClure, I got your motion, but not a vote.
I just voted.
I've done it too close.
I'm not a Democrat, I don't get to vote again, though.
A little investigating too, if you will.
All votes are in. And that motion also carries 7-0.
All right.
Y'all do a little investigating to see how this works in other places. I'd like for y'all to keep me in the loop just so I can.
We have the matter of the sewer allocation to handle as well. With this, the proposed request from Leo Terra Development to develop 208 acres off Heggie Road and build approximately 440 homes on the Davidson County sewer system will generate a sewer flow of 123,200 gallons per day. The sewer policy of the county requires any development that will exceed 10,000 gallons per day to receive approval from the Board of Commissioners. If approved, the sewer allocation that would remain in the agreement that the county has with Winston-Salem would be 542,034 gallons per day. So what you need to approve is the flow of 123,200, and that 542,034 gallons will be what's remaining with the Winston-Salem agreement.
And we had talked about that whenever we, had the last meeting, and that, agreement can be revised.
Correct.
And so we're not locked into that specific amount.
No, sir.
And I would make a motion that we approve that.
Can we do this verbally, please?
Do it verbally.
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether I can do that or not. I make a motion that we approve the allocated sewer to this project.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner McClure. Do we have a second?
That motion is 123,200
And then what I
gallons
just
per
said,
day.
allocated, that's what that means, allocated.
Just wanna make sure the record
That's
reflects it. I'll second that.
And second by Commissioner Jarvis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
Guy, while I got you up here, you heard, Barney W. Hill refer to some of the definitions, maybe needs to be looked at. Would you look at those for us? On Article 10? I think it was Article 10, and it's on an ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, continued discussion on strategic plan, Zeb?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. 2 years ago, we started down the road of trying to do a strategic plan with the Board of Commissioners. We had Lydian Altman from the School of Government here, and based off what we learned is the board at that time was interested in maybe doing an internal strategic plan, which means y'all planning for the future, not bringing in all these outside stakeholders. We got into some issues with the courthouse, and we had a lot on our plate, and so we had postponed it. We've kinda got past some of that stuff, and was wondering, would the board wanna entertain, there's still the money in the budget, of going back to looking at a strategic plan, or, how you would like to proceed, 'cause I know the board's getting ready to change hands as well. And I know Commissioner McClure, Commissioner Jarvis have always been interested in some long-range planning. So I'll throw it up to the board to get some direction as to how you'd like to proceed, what you would need from us, and rest at that.
Commissioner Jarvis?
As far as I'm concerned, I really would like to see us move forward with a strategic plan. I know that I'm fixing to be off the board, but I don't want that, being good use of the citizens' time and the planning. I think that's very necessary for this board to continue, and I would like to see it, at least get started and continue after the new board takes place.
One of the things that I'd like to, when he says getting started, because, when we put together a plan, here we got this courthouse coming at us and the different things some of the things that we really didn't know was gonna hit us, and, you get emergency, need right now to fix a roof at schools and certain things, but I think one of the ways to get started on that is we need to lay out all the projects we got going on right now, and let's finish what we're started. And, the things we are mandated to have to deal with, we'll have to deal with them, but I think we need to finish what we started at least, because we get sidetracked by everything else that comes on it. And it's not gonna do a whole lot of good to start something and, you know, to excite the citizens as to some of the things we're moving forward with and trying to get done. And we got all this other stuff hitting us, and we're trying to figure out how we're gonna finish what we started. So I think a good place to start would be the projects that we got going on now. And let's lay them out and see where we're at and how we need to prioritize, you know, how we deal with those things. But
And I agree with you. We got all these things on our plate already. Well, that'd be part of the strategic plan, won't it?
Yes.
Right.
We'll just say we're gonna put the roof on this school before we put the radio in this fire station or something. I mean, so we got a 911 system we upgrade.
Prioritization.
You definitely, for the new board coming on, like say today, I sat and listened to $100 million worth of wants, okay? So I think, like Steve said, whatever you wanna call it, to begin with, there needs to be a list. Here's $100 million worth of stuff that we're looking at right now. What's priority to you? And then we went to another meeting at lunch. There's another $8 or $10 million there they want to do. And, you know, I mean, I can count $16 million on the side of just another couple wants this afternoon. So I think those 8 or 10 things that is in front of the board right now, this new board that's coming on needs to look at it in December and go, what's a priority to you? Because they may have a different strategic plan than we do.
Right. One of the good advantages of having a strategic plan is you take what your guiding principles are that we've operated for eons. We've had some principles that we operate so far as our fund balance is concerned, and that has evolved over a period of time. But we have never really had a plan except as it goes toward the way we borrow money, and we don't borrow unless we got debt coming off and things of that nature, and we don't fund, you know, nonprofits and some of the other guiding principles. But a strategic plan will go a little bit further than that. It'll incorporate everything that you have that's on your plate today, not necessarily in the same amount. Mm-hmm. In other words, you say you're looking at $88 million or $100 million, it may be that the strategic plan has other things in there that wouldn't include $100 million, would only include $80 million. So that's what a strategic plan is for. The other thing the strategic plan does is it keeps you from going off on a tangent, something coming up that you hadn't considered, and all of a sudden now it's in the mix of all the stuff that you want to do, which just increases more money. And it actually confuses and muddies the water some. But if you stick to what your strategic, it doesn't mean that you can't have adjustments to it, but your strategic plan is a guideline that'll set your stance for not only this year, but for 5 years out or longer.
Well, and I agree with Commissioner McClure, and I agree with everybody so far, but what I want to look at with a plan is just like with this MXR and issues we're wanting to look at now with planning and zoning, our economic corridors, where we're growing in the county over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, how's planning and zoning play a key part in our economic development? And me personally, I would love to see us doing, instead of one plan for the entire county, maybe the northwest side of the county needs a different type of planning and zoning than the northeast or the southeast or southwest, because what may be needed in Denton is not what they need in Arcadia, because it's a different area. So to me, it's going to go more than just our capital needs. To me, it looks at our growth as a whole in the county, and how do we get there, and how do we make it work?
Another thing, I know that in our discussions that we had, if my memory serves me correct, we had decided on an internal rather than having an external. And there is a lot of pluses to having an external, because if you have an internal, you only have the knowledge of these 7 people sitting up here plus the staff to help us. If you have the external, they have the expertise of working with like counties and other organizations, and they may be able to put some ideas and some suggestions in that would even improve the plan that we would have if we just did it internal. I would like to look at the option of either one of them and see what the advantages are.
Well, when we talk about maybe a 5-year strategic plan, that means every year we upgrade that plan, don't we? So what I mean is something might be here this year, but it might be lower or higher after next.
Plans are made to be reviewed, yes.
Right. So, yeah, I think we need to. And it's kinda like he said, you know, we got enough on our plate right now for the first little while, but they need to be put on a plan so we'll know what we're doing.
I told Steve today, I mean, it's pretty scary how much money that everybody's wanting right now, unless you're gonna do a pretty sizable tax increase to cover it, so somebody needs to get their priorities.
That's real easy for a commissioner to say he's not gonna be here next year.
I know, yeah.
I'm gonna vote for him next time. He's gonna try it again.
No.
Do you think, Steve, this is Commissioner, this is something you've been working on for a while, and both of you have. Do you think a good starting place? Well, let's put our stuff that we're working on now in as a starting point, and let's see where we're at, and then proceed from that point? At least have a starting place.
I think that you're right, but I think that we need some structure, for what we're doing, because we're doing exactly what you're saying right now without a plan. And that is, we're dealing with the issues as they come up, putting roofs on them when it's a priority, and we don't have a plan. I think that what you're saying is correct. We do need to do those things, but we need to have, I don't know how to start a plan, but that's where we got folks here tonight that know how to do that, both internal and external. And they can help us get started. And I think that ought to be an initiative that we have, is we're gonna start a strategic plan and then go from that to doing the stuff that we're doing now, and including that in the strategic plan. But if we just say we're gonna start a strategic plan with doing what we're doing now, we haven't really started a strategic plan.
Well, I think, I think we have. I just think we've done it without a strategic plan. Casey, if you were gonna do it, how would you proceed with doing something?
Well, the funds we
you're
put
a
up, I
budget
think,
man, you're a numbers man, so you're probably the best person, you and Zay are probably the best two people I know that could.
Well, you know, we almost started part of it when we tried to put those referendums up for a vote, and we shot it down. That would have been a list of things we was gonna look at, and then we'd put them in prioritize them to put them on a strategic plan.
And that's a good example, Don, of issues that came up that we had never looked at before.
But you're one that said, listen, we pay as we go, we're not gonna do this, so, I mean, that would shoot down a strategic plan to start off with. We've got to put some structure to what we do.
Could we not, in doing a strategic plan, are there not, to do the capital plan, just like Steve said, what all we got on the plate, for staff to create that and us to go over that? Other areas, planning and zoning, get together and put something together, what they see, and then all the departments. Then, if you wanna go to an external, we've got some work already done that would be put into a strategic plan. Would that make sense, to do a hybrid of internal / external? In other words, us go through the process of doing the capital of everything we've got on the table that we know about right now on that area. Then if planning and zoning wanted to look at corridors and growth areas, in cooperation with the sewer committee, I know it's getting large, but you would have a lot of work done from internal staff, and then if you have an external person come in, they could facilitate that and put it together.
Well, I think what we meant by external was, like the plan of 1996, I think wasn't that the last time we did it, Guy? Was you bring in all these outside stakeholders. Now I've looked at Randolph counties. My hesitation with that is, that's almost like writing a blank check, and there'll be an expectation that money's gonna flow like milk and honey, and that just is unrealistic. That's what I mean by external. But internal, like I said, we could still have somebody come in and facilitate it and go through the strategic, how you guys want to set it, that's done it before. I'm just saying you don't want to broaden the scope so much that you create a picture of something that's unrealistic to achieve.
Yeah, that's what happened in '96. We had a lot of pie in the sky stuff.
Right.
That's usually what happens when you start trying to.
From
But if
what
we
I
had
was
somebody
saying, that's
come
what
in-
I was meaning,
Right.
is keep it internal, but
Right.
have somebody external come in
Right.
to facilitate it.
Right. And so when I, like I say, internal, external, internal means have a
Yes.
facilitator, help to guide the board and do the research, help us do the research, you know, like School of Government was gonna use some of their grad students, and we got Casey and I and Matt that can do some of that. But yes, correct.
You work with a lot bigger county than we are before. What type of strategic plan did you have or y'all have?
Mostly external, like Zeb said, it's a lot more going out and finding out what's missing in your county, because the planning that's done internally, as Commissioner McClure we do have a capital improvement plan. The problem is projects come, and I hate to say from left field, but they come, and then they go in front of things that are already on the plan. Well, that's not really a plan then, so.
That's what happened today. I'm talking about our committee meeting we had today at lunch. Here comes something that this committee's probably gonna vote to bring in front of the board in the near future, where you was there, that could add $8 or $10 million. So where does that come in the strategic plan? Does it get placed ahead of something else?
Part of it's costing it out too.
I
If
know.
you'd asked me a year ago, you know,
That's
we
where
even had.
Mr. McClure just come in a while ago. In the past, they kinda paid as they went.
Right.
They didn't have somebody just blindsiding you wanting a $10 million.
For example, when I got here, we had some, in the capital plan, we had some funding we were gonna set aside to do some courthouse renovations. Now, if you remember, along the way, we've done some renovations in the main courtroom. But I think it was more geared to kinda just knowing that at some point in time, we gotta do something. We didn't have any inkling of what we saw this morning or anything like that, or even 17 million for option F. So that does change the game, so to speak.
Well, when we looked at this before, that jail and the complex we was looking at out there on the, property out there on 64, it was 73 million, wasn't it? I believe that was the number I got, 73 million. But I don't know how much, I don't recall how much the renovations to the jail, courthouse, parking deck and all of that was when we did it before, do you remember?
It seems like it was always in phases, and it seemed like it would be, close to $100 million.
Yeah, but we did it in phases.
Right. But always the first phase, if I remember, was almost probably around $40 million every time they started that first phase.
But you're talking about the refurbishing they've done back
Yeah,
15 years ago, right?
Rebuilding and refurbishing, yeah.
He's talking about when we were in 2007 with the space needs study, aren't you? Is that what you're talking about?
I
The
thought he
last,
was
when
talking
Glenn
about
Ware
what
and
I
all
was
those,
talking about when we redid
When y'all redone it over there.
the
last-
courthouse and the jail and all of that, and put the parking deck in.
okay, yeah, that was,
Watch out now.
$10 or $15 million or something, is that right?
that's before my time.
Oh, that was more than that.
Was it?
Oh, yes.
That thing jumped today, $21 million.
Yeah.
From 100 to what? No, 100 to
But that's what a strategic plan will do, is it allow you to do stuff in phases. And, you know,
Well, should this be before or after or during,
do what?
to put a strategic plan together? Should this be put together prior to our workshop? Don't our workshop happen in January? February.
That could be incorporated in it, I'm sure, and that would be a good time to do it. It's not
I just
necessarily.
wondered if it should be before or after or during that.
Yeah, we used to have more than a half a day.
I just wonder if
In our
it
meetings.
couldn't be a lot of it put together prior to, so going into the meeting of your retreat, they'd have more to present.
I think, if you're gonna start, if you're gonna start it, you gotta have some sense of projected revenue. That's coming in, that you're hoping to attract, by some of the things that you got going on right now that's gonna grow the economy, that's gonna produce, you know, like, for example, this year, a number of the factors included, but, you know, our sales tax production increased to $1,600,000 last year. you know, we probably wouldn't have planned for that 3 years ago, or when that was, and I know a lot of that
Well,
was
we have to plan for
legislatively,
the
but.
opposite swing when the economy tanks down too.
Right,
so.
right.
But we do, you know, we've got a financial model that goes out 5 years, and it does a really good job.
That model pretty much keeps you in line.
It keeps you in line. It will, if you stay with it and stay disciplined, it will keep you in line. And, but the problem is, Commissioner Yates alluded to, it's the projects, it's trying to decipher through the needs versus, I guess, the wants somewhat. But we're also mandated to do certain things, as y'all know, with jails and those kinds of things. So it gets to be a real strain to try to figure out, especially if all those things hit at somewhat the same 5-year time period too. That's the other problem. Commissioner McCoy's right. Spacing it out is the challenge. Is how can we get this done, but not break the bank, but keep it going and they all come due at the same time.
And who do you tell no to?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And the problem is, who do you tell no to?
And we were going to spend a little time with that at the retreat this year. We've already started to formulate in our head what we want to bring to you all. And so some things we may get lighter on and show and tell in February or March whenever we're going to have it, and a little heavier on maybe some of these things. And we do the capital plan every year, but this year we may go through a little bit more of these types of scenarios and see if we can get a grip on where we're going.
To answer your question there, Mr. Jarvis, I think they could bring some models back to the informational meeting sometime, maybe look at and see what some other people have done and see if it's productive. There's gotta be some other counties out there that's done something.
Oh, yeah. Most of the other counties have I say most of them, that's not correct, I guess, but the other counties that I'm aware of that have a strategic plan have somebody outside come in and facilitate their strategic plan. They don't try to do it piecemeal.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't try to do all this other. They try to have somebody come in and to facilitate our conversation, not just starting with what we've got, but what do we want? What do we want to see for this county in 5 years? What's important to the people in the county in 5 years, and how do we go about achieving that? And revising planning and zoning may be a top priority, but whenever you start doing the plan, that may not be a top priority. And that's where the person coming in from outside can facilitate and start on a strategic plan. If you don't start, we'll never get started. We'll be doing the same thing.
I don't disagree with you there. I mean, like I say, I think you need an example to look at or talk with some other counties and see what has worked for them. I mean, I don't disagree with you at all that you need somebody probably from the outside looking in to,
Well, your city does one every year.
Yeah, and when we started this last time, we looked a little bit, we looked at Randolph County. I think I provided that, but I can get that information. And they were more external. I think Alamance County was more internal. And so, but I know the COG does them, School of Government does them. I can get in contact with them and get you some more information.
But I'm talking about a county that has used one and has stood behind it and stood with it, instead of just having one done, putting it on the shelf.
Right.
That's what most of them do.
And probably the folks at the COG or the School of Government could tell you who's got one if they've actually used it.
Right.
So I'll check with them.
And Commissioner McCord, Yates, to answer, I haven't worked in a place that used them, so, Wake County didn't have one. Guilford did, but it was way more external and wasn't as good of a guide for these types of scenarios we're dealing with here as far as money goes. It may be a good guide for what did the community want to be, but sometimes that didn't line up with exactly the tax rate and the pocketbook of that given year you were dealing with. So I don't have a lot of experience dealing with places that were able to drag one off the shelf and say, that's the guiding. We just had, like Commissioner McCoy said, we had philosophies in Wake County, that we had financial policies and things we lived by, and that's what we did.
And we had principles, and you can still have those. For instance, I was looking at this thing. I wasn't able to make the meeting, but I was looking at that, and I asked Dwayne a question. Is it possibility just to plan for the clerk and for the jail outside of the courthouse? And, that's some of the things that you might look at in a strategic plan. Is we know for a fact, we've been told that the clerk's office is the priority to get him someplace besides where he is. And we know that if we don't do something, the state's gonna make the jail a priority. So if we could do those two things And that's where this planning, strategic planning starts. And if you could do it in phases, sometimes you can pay for it without, I mean, we built that, the last time we did the courthouse, we didn't have to borrow money. And we built 7 schools and not had to increase any tax rate. Now, the taxes are increased because you have reval, but
Some of the
except when
kids
it goes
would go
down.
along with that jail.
Yeah, I know a couple myself.
Okay.
They're becoming more and more like jails.
So we're looking to maybe talk about something at the retreat?
Okay.
Okay, we got, 2 public hearings and 2 zoning. Let's take a 10-minute break. Recess.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Reconvene from recess. Zeb, Casey, before we start the public hearing, I think the direction is that you guys get started on the strategic plan and maybe bring us something at the next informational meeting, and then we'll proceed on to the retreat.
Do what now?
I guess it would help me for a little bit. So at the next informational meeting, isn't that the one where we have all the employee awards and things? Is that the next meeting in December?
Yeah,
So-
just waiting.
I mean, would you rather me just, at the retreat, I plan to go through a little bit more of kind of what you were referring to. I mean,
Okay,
a little
well-
more in-depth than we normally do.
That's fine. It just, I wanted you to understand, I think y'all were looking for some directives so you understand what the
I think
directives
so.
are?
I
Okay.
think I do.
I think we got it.
Okay,
We're
all
good.
right. I did want to move on and then leave y'all hanging there. Okay, on the public hearing, we've got Project OBX, Economic Development Incentive Grant. I declare the public hearing open. Craig Goodson.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Project OBX is an existing Davidson County manufacturer with an average wage of their employees that exceeds $50,000 a year. They are competing with several of their out-of-state sister companies for an expansion. This expansion has the potential to add up to $25 million in new capital investment. It will retain current employees and has the opportunity for new jobs to be created in the future as a result of this investment. The EDC is requesting your approval of an economic development grant with annual payments not to exceed $67,500 to be paid for a period of 5 years. The company must meet the requirements of the contract to achieve their incentive. This capital investment will stimulate the local economy. It will retain jobs and increase county tax revenues. I appreciate your consideration and approval of this grant, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Would you repeat again what you're asking from the county, the capital investment again, that dollar figure?
Their capital investment in their equipment will be up to $25 million. And so we're asking for approval of a 5-year grant that will pay $67,500, which is the typical .0027, which is half of the property taxes they will pay.
Now, you're saying up to, and the resolution we're looking at says during the first 36 months, the company must invest a minimum of $25 million.
That is their expectation, is to create $25 million.
Okay, so if they don't make that, there's no incentive.
That would be true.
Okay.
So if they spend 20, we're not gonna give them any incentive,
Well, based on what we would approve, that would not be approved. We would have to come back and revisit that.
The public hearing notice does give you all the opportunity to revamp what you all decide to do.
At that time.
We've left it open that you all can change the terms in this public hearing if it moves forward.
Today, right now.
Yeah, I was aware of that. I was just trying to get the difference between what he was saying and what I was reading.
I sort of feel like up to, I mean, I don't have a problem with up to and including whatever they do.
Well, I mean, for practical purposes,
if they spend $30 million.
If they did 30, quite frankly, if they did 30, our payment won't exceed $67,500. But if they did 20, our payment still wouldn't exceed $67,500, and it'd still be based on .0027. So we're at no point are we ever giving more than 50% of the taxes that they have already paid.
What if we would just include whatever investment they make would equate to the .0027, whether it be 20 million, whether it be 30 million, it would be based on that .0027.
Personally, from the EDC perspective, it would be a lot cleaner if that was what we did for every consideration.
Is there a reason why we cannot do that?
No, we did that in Lincoln County. This is just the format that has always been used in Davidson County. Yeah.
And that would remove the not to exceed language.
That would remove the not to succeed as well. Yeah. So they would basically just get that, but they get 50% back from whatever they invested, regardless of the investment.
So I've got a little shop out here and I wanna expand and I'm gonna put $10,000 in it. I can get .0027 investment from that.
Well, if the commissioners were to.
If that's what you say, that's what you gotta do.
You mean for this particular one?
What he just said.
It would
But
have
no
to be
limit,
applied for, would it not?
no minimum at all. So
Well,
anybody could come with any amount of money and you'd pay them .0027. And we're making an exception anyway because of the job situation. They're maintaining jobs, but they're not bringing jobs. And the whole idea of economic development incentives is to bring in, new business and also to, thanks to, Commissioner Watford, is to have to do something with the existing businesses as well. But there's a limit on the existing business. I think you have to invest a minimum of $50,000 on the existing business.
I think in the past, it's just been the board's prerogative that the company is making a commitment to them at the amount they're gonna do. If you do this, then we'll do this.
Yeah.
I mean.
Because otherwise, they get an incentive regardless of what they do.
Right. So but that's still the board's prerogative, but that's just been their philosophy over the years.
Yeah. The board can set a minimum capital investment and quite frankly, they can set a minimum number of jobs. The minimum number of jobs is generally gonna hurt existing industry because with this, it could be a $25 million capital investment, but immediately they do not need to hire additional people. It may lead to additional, but if they don't get this project and it goes to another sister plant, they may start losing jobs, which at over $50,000 a job, I don't want to lose. So yes, we could set a minimum. And once again, with the existing industry, if you set a minimum capital investment of $1 million, it's going to exclude a lot of the small businesses as well, just from that factor. But that can be done.
I guess I go back to what the incentive is supposed to do. We have performance-based budgeting, and the department heads have to get with the county manager and assistant county manager and come up with goals. And if they don't make the goals, then they can't participate in the performance-based budgeting benefit. And if we do away with our incentive, a company coming in and it's looking for an incentive ought to be able to tell us what the threshold is for their own incentive. In other words, if they say that we can do $25 million, and if we do that, we want this incentive, and we say, yes, that's fine. But whenever you say up to $25 million, that's not much incentive because you're going to get it regardless of what you do.
The way this reads here, we pay it once they send a certification that they have met their obligations.
That they have made the investment.
And once we receive that, then they're awarded the incentive, the monies that they save, okay? So if you make it less than the 25 million, make it 20 million, are we gonna start at that point? So I don't understand quite how that would work.
The company that's coming in, that is looking for the incentive, works with the EDC on the amount that they get the incentive for. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So the company, with their own bookkeeping and their own management, ought to be able to tell you how much they expect to do. And they're going to be conservative. They're not going to set the bar so high they can't make it. because they wouldn't be getting any incentive. So if they're working on the incentive, they're gonna set the bar low, or not low, but, what they consider reachable, so that they'll get the incentive. But that's what we've done in the past.
And I think you just argued my point. Why would you go less than what they projected they can do? I don't quite understand why you would do
I
that.
reckon from my standpoint, I'm looking at it, are they made aware that absolutely if they don't meet that threshold, they get nothing? They may set a incentive of $25 million, and if they hit 22 million, they don't get anything. And they may be aiming for 25 million because they're looking at the 67, whatever that specific dollar amount is.
Well, they are expecting, based on their plan, to create
25 million.
something in the neighborhood of,
in the contract
$25 million. So at that point, they either, in the contract, if it says $25 million, they're expected to hit that.
That's right.
And I guess the issue is, do we want to penalize them if for some reason they don't buy one piece of equipment and it costs $1 million and they invest $24 million? Do we want to tell them at that point, well, you just don't qualify for an incentive at all because you only created $24 million instead of $25 million?
You can ask them how much more time they need to buy that other $1 million.
Well, but the time might be they decided they don't need to buy that piece of equipment over the period that they're doing that.
And I don't think we're penalizing anybody. I think that when we offer an incentive, it is a reward. And if they don't make it, it's not a penalty. It's just the fact they didn't make it. I mean, they're the ones that's setting the amount.
We've gone back on one or two and adjusted it when they weren't gonna make it.
I don't think
Seems
so.
like I remember.
We have withheld incentives.
Seems like I remember when somebody was supposed to have
I think
50 employees and didn't get but 45 that we.
I think there was, several years ago, there was modification made that if they didn't achieve their employment numbers.
Right.
That then they could still receive some percentage of it.
Yeah, that was based on an unemployment rate of over 10%.
Yes, and it required in the contract that the unemployment rate had to be above that level in order to qualify to receive the percentage.
And if it wasn't, then the incentive that was presented stood.
Here's what I look at. If the company's sitting there thinking, okay, we're gonna spend $25.2 million, and then they go to buy, and then the company maybe has a sale or whatever it may be on some equipment, and they spend $24.8 million, well, they didn't meet our incentive, so I don't want them to have to go out and spend $200,000 more dollars just to get the money that we're gonna give back. The money that we're giving back, I mean, they've already paid the taxes. We're just gonna refund them half of it back and it's only half of what they're putting into it. So it's not half of what they're already currently paying. This is money that we're talking about we don't even have yet. If we don't approve it, we won't get anything. So I'd rather have half the pie than none of it, because after 5 years, then we get all of it. So, I mean, I don't mind wording it to where if they spend $10 million or they spend 50 for them to get a piece of it. I understand that we normally tie this to job growth and creation, but I also understand what Craig's talking about is if we don't do it, it could go somewhere else.
Listen, what we're saying is they're not going anywhere if they don't make the incentive, because they're already here. They've already invested the money, so you're not talking about somebody fleeing.
That's not what he just said. He said...
No, that what we're saying on the incentive is they get the incentive when it's completed, not in advance.
But this incentive is to hold them here. Because
That's correct. Right. That's correct. It's to hold them here. But in this company, I cannot imagine any company coming in and saying, well, the maximum that we're going to invest is $25 million, so that's what we'll tell them that we base the incentive on. They're not going to do that. They may going to invest $30 million, but they make a more conservative estimate saying, 25 million. That way we give us a little leeway in case stuff don't work out. But if they agree to the 25 million, they agreed to the 25 million. That's what they said they're gonna do, and that's what they're required to do. If they don't do it, then they don't get the incentive. I tell you, if you do it the other way, how many people how many companies out there are we gonna owe money to that we withheld incentives for? Because they didn't make the employment numbers, or they didn't make the investment. We've got a good plan.
All of these is subject to, if there were extenuating circumstances that you think the board needed to consider, is something that you could bring back to us, and if it was something we need to look at, isn't it? Without changing the way we're doing it now?
That's what we did with the unemployment thing, so that the board, yes, can make adjustments because of outside influence that would keep them from doing it. But if the problem is their business plan, then we don't wanna make adjustments to take into consideration they didn't have a good business plan. But if there are some outside things like unemployment or something like that, that would cause them not to be able to do that, then yeah, we can make adjustments.
Is the public hearing open yet or not?
Yes.
I mean, I certainly think that, you know, the board could give some leeway. They could set a minimum and then up to whatever, or go back to the company and make sure that they understand that if they don't create if they only create 24,500,000, they're not gonna get the incentive, so they better make sure that whatever number they give, they absolutely, without a doubt, are prepared to make.
And if I was that company, I'd load up my bags and I'd take off to the other county that was offering me,
There's no other counties that do it, Todd. This is the incentives that they do. There's not very many counties out there that's gonna give an incentive on $5,000 or $10,000.
I ain't saying 10,000, he's talking about 24,500,000, and that's what I'm saying. If I come back to you and say, Craig, I didn't spend the 25 million, I only spent 24.5, I'd appreciate it if y'all would give me my tax credit for 24.5. If you said, well, no, we can't do that, you know, that wasn't in the agreement, you had to spend at least 25 million, I'd think, what kind of place have I invested my money in that won't compensate me for my investment? So,
Craig,
it's just my take on it.
Did I hear you say Lincoln County? What was their setup?
Lincoln County, you had to invest a minimum of $1 million, and then it was tiered based on the amount of investment you made. But for this investment, Lincoln County will give them 95% of their taxes back for 7 years.
Like I say, probably if they were sitting here listening to the video recording tonight, they'd probably have to second.
Well, and you know, and we have no idea what the other competing plants or those localities could or would be offering, and if one of the other ones is saying up to $25 million, and
how'd you come up with 25 million?
They gave me those numbers.
They gave you that number, and whenever they gave you a number, what'd they say? We're going to invest 25 million in machinery.
Said the estimated cost for the estimated cost is $15 million with an additional $10 million of other capital investment being considered.
But they're the ones that came up with that number.
They came up with that number.
And that
yes,
first word
Being
you said,
considered?
estimated?
Yes, sir.
That was the first word you said before the 15 million?
And you were talking about what when they made that statement? Incentive?
The capital investment.
Yeah.
Right.
Talking about incentive.
That was in their application.
Right.
Yes.
So they knew it was estimate. They made the word estimate. That's what they agreed, and they said that it's going to be 25 million.
I'm good.
Well, they said an estimated 15 million with an additional 10 million to be considered for this other equipment. That's what I'm saying. If they decide,
if they missed it by 200,000, that was the estimation problem.
well,
you know,
I would guess that with that equipment, they, you know, not buying one piece could sway it by $1 million easy.
I reckon we're getting ahead. Is this
That's
not
right.
public hearing rather than our discussion at this point?
Oh,
it is a public hearing, and you gotta get that wording done if you're gonna approve this at the end of the public hearing. You gotta know what you're voting on. If you do it, you're gonna have to change your, economic development incentive plan in order to change it. You can't just change it for one organization and say at 10 million, we'll give them 0.175, and at 15 million, we'll give them something else. I mean, they knew what the incentive was. They know what the incentive is. They know how much money they're gonna be getting back, and they know how much money they're gonna invest.
I'm kinda like, I think Barney's mentioned this before. I'm good at giving them 0.0027 with no maximum. I mean, the more they invest, I mean, we've always got that maximum in there up to $60,000 or whatever. Well, why would you cap a guy that's spending 30 grand? What if he wants to spend 100? Why not? Let him spend 100 million, you know, or 50 million. Why even cap it, period? You give him 0.0027.
Well, and I would say most economic development organizations set a minimum capital investment, and then you can invest whatever.
As much as you want, the sky's the limit.
Other than some of them set tiers, so yeah, once you get to a certain level, they want you to invest.
Craig, why don't you, go back and figure out how we could readdress this stuff for future stuff. I'm fine with saying a minimum of 5 million on this one and whatever maximum. If they spend $100 gazillion, give them that portion of it back. It could be huge, as Trump would say. But maybe you should look at our current plan and maybe come back to us and present to us on other ways of looking at it, and that way for future stuff, we've got it under control. Would everybody else be okay with that?
Well, you know, one thing I'd like to ask Greg, I thought I understood you till now I'm confused. When it says your incentive contract says, subject to depreciation, a minimum of 25 million. If they spend 30 million, we're gonna pay that incentive on 30 million, aren't we? It's
capped. They reach an incentive.
Capped at 25. Okay.
So they have to create 25, but if they created 50, they wouldn't get any additional money.
Mm-hmm. I've never understood that, period.
But it doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Fry.
Sorry. The incentive is not an ongoing thing forever. No. The incentive is to induce the person or the company to come here in the first place. That's what an incentive is for. It's not to say, okay, this is what we're going to give you as an incentive, and then, you know, if you do more than that, we'll give you more. The incentive is the incentive is to get the people to come to the county, not an ongoing thing where if they invest more money, they get more money.
Well,
the whole idea was
there is a timeline.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that.
What we got before us tonight is on the agenda for the public hearing, and that's the reason I draw your attention to this, Mr. Fry. You correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have on the agenda for a public hearing a resolution or an incentive contract to change our economic EDC plans. No. That's something we need to discuss if we think we need to do that. What we have on tonight is this economic development incentive contract, which shall either be approved after the public hearing or voted down, one or the other. So I think right now let's stay focused on this right here. Okay. You got anything else you want to add? Okay.
I'm sure Barney does.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of or against this proposal?
I've been telling you that not to exceed language is self-defeating for probably 10 years, and everybody would seem to be offended that I would want y'all to ask Mr. Googe why it's in there. And the only time anybody did ask him why it was in there, he mumbled something and I don't even know what he mumbled. By the way, that language about the prorating the amount if you are in double digits of unemployment for one of the 6 months prior to the grant request, that's where that comes in. That was a series of innovations that Mr. Watford did back in 2009, and I believe that paragraph was changed. I think at one time it had to be all 6 months. But there's a lot of stuff in this, I guess you'd say, a template contract that is not what was advertised. It's flexibility there. You'll look in paragraph 4 on page 2. If it becomes effective tonight, if you approved it, became effective tonight, okay, it's you've got your 36 months in there. Well, how can you begin with the first payment in January the 1st, 2020? 3 years. And if you look at paragraph 5, you've got a bracket there on that second line. It says equal to or greater than that / greater than that. It can be either way. The part I've never understood on it is how you maintain the investment with depreciation going on. That's that is in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth whereas on page 1, company shall invest and maintain subject to depreciation a minimum of $25 million. And then you also got to maintain the employment, and that goes from day to day. So I've always wanted to know this. So I'm glad I stuck around long enough to hear y'all talk about it. I disagree with Mr. McClure on whether or not it's an incentive. And I definitely disagree on whether it's a grant. Grant's not something you pay to yourself. And on the incentive, I've always said about this, you're bribing a man with his own money to do what he was going to do anyhow. So, and that's fine by me, because I don't care if you let him keep it all for eternity, because I think he's going to create more wealth with it than you're going to by handing it over to Mr. Marshburn. I believe I said enough. I'm in favor of it, whatever it is.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. Are there any questions by the board? Any further? Okay. I declare the public hearing closed. We can have a motion and second or to approve the Economic Development Incentive Project OBX.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve, Commissioner Jarvis, second by Commissioner Yates. Cast your vote.
All the votes are in. And that motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, got a public hearing. Change in boundary lines between the Churchland and the Tyro Fire Service District. I declare the public hearing open. Danny?
Good evening, Mr. Commissioners. The Fire Marshal's Office would like to request the Davidson County Board of Commissioners to consider relocating by resolution the Tyro and Churchland Fire Service, Fire Insurance, and Fire Response District lines to reflect Charity Acres subdivision as part of the Tyro Fire District. This change will correct a 2009 mapping area that placed the Charity Acres subdivision in the Churchland Fire District, subjecting the affected properties to a higher insurance premium. Approving this request will allow these properties to be assessed at a lower insurance rating of a 5 as opposed to a 9.
Now, Danny, I believe that was done in an error, is that correct?
That's correct. The mapping software that we used detected a road that was not actually a true bona fide road, in which now, from my understanding, has been closed and don't even exist. It cut across through private property, and with that road in existence, they would still be within the required 5 miles to receive the lower insurance premium, but being that that road doesn't exist, they're being subjected to a 9.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what are you asking?
Asking to move the Charity Acres subdivision out of the Churchland Fire Service District and back into the Tyro Fire Service District.
Even though it's not within the 5 mile limit, what does the fire marshal say about that?
I'm sorry.
I mean, what does the state say about that?
Well, the state leaves it up to the commissioner to determine what area of a particular district lies in which boundary. So, in this case here, the Charity Acres subdivision once existed in Tyro's fire district, but in '09, when they redrew the district maps to go from rural fire protection to service districts, it detected a road in there, and it recommended putting it into Churchland's district to better break up along natural boundaries or roadways.
I understand that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What initiated this change?
This was initiated from a phone call from Gene Hilton, who's the property owner of 218 Windy Drive, which is located in the Charity Acres subdivision. I received a call, I believe it was from, was it you, Zeb? Yeah, to check into it. And her concern was that all of a sudden her insurance rate went up tremendously, and she wanted an answer as to why. So when I started looking into it, the reason why was because they came in and redone her insurance and seen that she was greater than 5 driving miles. She still was in a district and still afforded the insurance, just at a higher rate.
But if you look at the roadway map, the way it is currently, Churchland has to go out of their district and around in order to enter Charity Acres.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sounds like it's a no-brainer then.
Yeah, it makes sense to.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of or opposed to this? Barney W. Hill.
What I don't ever understand when we have one of these 153A-304.3 request is we hear about there's going to be a tremendous change in there has been a tremendous change in the insurance rate and what the difference is, but what kind of amounts are we talking about, from what to what? You know, when Oprah went on her first diet, we heard how much she lost, but we didn't hear how much she was before and how much she was after. That's what I've always wanted to know. And since the higher premium is based on a lower insurance rating, it would be helpful to have from the Department of Insurance written confirmation that the anticipated change will be sufficient to obtain the desired higher rating. Otherwise, why go through all of this? She might end up less well off than she was before if the State Department of Insurance won't give you an ironclad ruling on whether it is or it isn't. I think we're going to hear from the Churchland Fire Chief. He's going to warn that if you go through with all this, he will require a half-cent tax rate increase to hold his department harmless. Instead, why couldn't the Tyro department simply donate its windfall to the Churchland department? I view the expansion of a rural fire district the same way I view a municipal annexation. I will support the expansion if 100% of the affected property owners request it in writing. Until such a petition has materialized, I'll be against it.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Danny, for clarification, is this fall within the 5 mile limit that's imposed?
Yes, sir. I mapped it out. It's actually 4.5 miles.
4.5. And that's gonna qualify them for the lower insurance
According
rate.
to the ISO standards that are set and that the Department of Insurance adopts and goes by, that's correct.
Have you had any negative feedback from any of the affected parties?
Initially, Churchland Fire Department said that they would possibly need a half-cent increase to make up for the approximate $6,000 loss. But after revisiting the issue, one of their board members, Benji Shove, came back to me at my office and said they would not be pursuing that they could get by without that increase.
I reckon that could be looked at both two different ways. It could be that Churchland took the windfall for how many years during a mapping mistake, and you could look at it both ways.
And that's exactly the way Mr. Shove said that they came out to the good for many years on something they shouldn't have had anyway.
Right. You're talking Barry Shove,
Barry Shove.
Tyro, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, excuse me, that was Benji Shove.
Benji.
Churchland.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Danny? Okay, declare the public hearing closed.
One thing,
Barney.
it would just be simply, if Mr. Ward write a letter to Mr. Causey and ask him if he did his mapping right.
So previously when they moved it the first time, or this time?
I mean, what he's anticipating doing now. Yes or no? And then you're not dependent on something that might fall apart on you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Declare the public hearing closed. Anybody have any other discussion about it?
I make a motion to approve it if there's no discussion.
Got a motion to approve the proposed change in the boundary lines between Churchland and Tyro Fire District. Commissioner Cross, do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Jarvis. Cast your vote.
All those voted in, and that motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we got a rezoning request by Michael S. Fox, Terramore Development in Reedy Creek Township containing 1.93 acres from RA3 to HC.
You do have
declare the public hearing open, Guy?
You do have a request by Michael S. Fox, who is representing Terramore Development, to rezone 1.93 acres. More or less, the property is located in Reedy Creek Township, tax map 20, being a portion of Lot 3. Property is further located on the west side of North NC Highway 150, approximately 300 feet south of the West Center Street Extension intersection. The rezoning is requested to change from RA3 Rural Agricultural District to HC Highway Commercial District. Planning and Zoning did meet on this on October the 16th. Their recommendation was a unanimous recommendation, 5-0, to grant the request as it was presented. On your zoning map, you can see the area that we're speaking of, which is crosshatched here. You have existing highway commercial across the road here. This is the West Center Street Extension. This is CNR Landscaping. And then you have the convenience store and the mini storage warehouse across the highway there. On this side, you have a mobile home, manufactured home park. You do have some residences here, but then you also have other highway commercial up in this area here. Clinton Cogburn is here tonight he's an attorney with Tuggle. He's a law partner with Mr. Fox, and he's here to discuss the application. This site is for a Dollar General store, I believe, and so it'd be a retail business.
Okay, what was that name again?
Clinton Cogburn.
So Mr. Fox has been paying an attorney to sit here all night? Feel sorry for Mr. Fox. Oh, okay.
Good evening, Chairman Shell and members of commission. As you know, my name is Clint Cogburn. I'm an attorney in Greensboro with offices at 100 North Green Street. I'm here tonight on behalf of Terramore Development, LLC. With me here for Terramore is Mr. Daniel Almazan. He does site acquisition for Terramore in this region, and he's happy to answer any questions you have about Terramore, Dollar General, some of the site-specific or development-specific questions you may have. He's happy to field those at any time. Just want to take a moment to applaud staff. They've been great to work with on this, very helpful, very responsive, and just an overall pleasure to work with. I'll keep my comments brief. As staff has mentioned, what we're requesting is that a 1.93 acre lot along or fronting NC Highway 150 be rezoned from RA to highway commercial. We believe that that is appropriate in the area given the existing highway commercial, not only directly across the street from this site, but north, in the NC 150 corridor. Additionally, you have a growing commercial corridor, a major thoroughfare through the county, so we believe the rezone is appropriate given those circumstances. Just to give you some additional background, the proposed development here would be a Dollar General. Terramore Development is a preferred developer of Dollar General in the southeast. The reason they have preferred status is because of the quality of developments they build. They having worked for Terramore for the past couple of years, they hold themselves to a very high standard. They put quality developments together, and they stand by their product. So what they plan to build at this site will be quality, will be a benefit to the community, and will provide the surrounding community with essential services, goods, a community store that people can stop in at on their way to and from home. So that's the intent here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but we believe this request is appropriate given the existing highway commercial in the area. It's consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, and we believe that it provides goods and services to the community that is currently lacking. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
The setback on that property, there is a plan, hopefully, I think it's got, about 10 years, to widen that to a 4-lane road. So when you build the structure, you may want to look at setting that far enough back.
And I believe that has been taken into account with some of the site development and site acquisition.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other question, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of or opposed to this request? Barney W. Hill?
Here he is again. A request to rezone from RA3 to HC in response to an increase in business activity. A discussion of encroachment, clustering, and compatibility of uses on opposite sides of the same highway, as well as the concept of shopping area servicing just the immediate community. And then there's a generous offer of buffering from the applicant. So this request is an echo of the Schuler Meats request 3 weeks ago. Only this time the planning board and the planning staff are on the same side of the issue. And this time there is not the slightest hint of illegal contract zoning. You were unanimously right 3 weeks ago. The correct vote is again in the affirmative.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay. Mr. Corn, what's staff recommendation for this request?
Mr. Chairman, there are a number of, in the application, there are a number of cited, policy statements. I won't go into those, but we are in support of the request. You're at the intersection of a major, collector street and an arterial, and this is where we would recommend commercial zoning.
Okay, any further discussion? I declare the public hearing closed. Can I have a motion and a second to either approve or deny this rezoning request and to adopt the resolution on a statement of consistency?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt this rezoning request and to adopt the resolution statement of consistency.
Motion by Commissioner Yates, do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, who made the second? We got a second by Commissioner Troy. Cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries 7-0.
Okay.
I was wondering why y'all
Thank you,
was
Mr.
sticking around
Coghlan.
all night.
Rezoning request by Hubbard Realty of Winston-Salem Inc. in Arcadia Township containing 15.71 acres from RA3 to MXR. I declare the public hearing open. Guy?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this particular rezoning was advertised for public hearing tonight. It is a request by Hubbard Realty to rezone 15.71 acres more or less in Arcadia Township, Tax Map 2, Lot 10G. And the request is to go from RA3, Rural Agricultural District, to MXR, Mixed Use Residential District. It was recommended for approval by the Planning Board on October the 16th. Since that time, Mr. Chairman, there has been an additional request by the developer to add 15 more acres to this site. So that necessitates this being tabled to allow for proper notification to the adjoining property owners for this additional 15 acres. So at this time, staff is recommending that you continue this item and for a date specific of November 27th at 7 p.m. to
Okay.
allow that notification to
6
take
p.m.
place.
All right, can I have a motion and a second to
So
table
moved,
this
Mr.
public?
Chairman.
Got a motion from Commissioner Yates, do I have a second?
I assume you meant 6 p.m.?
6 p.m., yes, sir.
Second there, Donnie.
Okay, second.
A second, Commissioner Troy, cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Can I have a motion and a second to go into closed session? A motion?
Thought y'all was just hanging around 'cause you liked us.
Got a motion from Commissioner Troy, got a second?
Where y'all still
Second.
doing it?
Second, Commissioner.
Third, fourth.
Troy. and vote
Okay. Back in session, Mr. Price.
The, board considered, two matters under attorney-client. The first was a matter entitled Dwayne Lanier versus Davidson County and Key Risk Management Services pending before the North Carolina Industrial Commission in file number 16-019848. And the board gave to council direction for further action. That's all we have at this time, sir.
Okay, motion adjourned.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Okay.